Thank you for joining today. We are going to be we're continuing our series of myrrh essential oil in the Bible, and we're going to be talking about where we find myrrh at Jesus' crucifixion. So just let me introduce myself. Hello, my name is Angela Weber. I am an independent distributor with Young Living Essential Oils. I have a Bachelor of Science in biology, and I also had a 2-year stint as a middle school science teacher. I have a passion for taking big, complicated ideas and breaking them down into easy to understand bits and pieces. And I also have a passion for connecting you with the information that you need in order to support your family's health and wellness goals. Okay, so today we are going to be camping out in Matthew and Mark. These are the first 2 books in the New Testament, and we're going to be sharing where we find myrrh at Jesus' crucifixion. So just to give you a little backstory of how we got to where we are, what has happened here is the chief priests and the elders have had Jesus arrested, and they've had him taken to Caiaphas. Now, Caiaphas is the high priest. They had him taken to Caiaphas, the chief priests, and the Sanhedrin. Now, the Sanhedrin was a very powerful religious and political body during this time. The Romans, they handled the government, but the Sanhedrin was allowed to handle local religious and civil disputes. They had a lot of power, but there was something they couldn't do, and that was they could not order anyone to be put to death without the approval of the Roman government. So here they are. They are looking at false evidence to put Jesus to death. And what do they find? Nothing. They find nothing. He had never sinned, and so they couldn't find anything to charge him with. Well, then 2 people come forward and they say, well, he said, I am able to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Now, he was talking about himself. He was talking about how he would be put to death, and on the 3rd day, he would be resurrected. But they didn't understand this. And so they thought he meant literally he could destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. And so the high priest asked him flat out. They say, tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God. And Jesus answers, yes, it is as you say. Well, the high priest just can't believe this. He tears his clothes. He declares that Jesus has spoken blasphemy and that he is therefore worthy of death. But remember, the priests and the Sanhedrin, they cannot order death without the approval of the Roman government. And so what they do is they spit at him, they blindfold him, they beat him, and the next morning they take Jesus to Pilate. And Pilate is the Roman governor over this area. Now, Rome could care less about blasphemy, so they have to spin the story. So they say that Jesus is claiming to be a king, the king of the Jews. And so Pilate straight out asks him, he says, are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus answers, yes, it is as you say. Now, at this time, it's the Feast of Passover. That's what's happening in the city. And when you read about Jesus having the Last Supper with his disciples, that's what they're sharing. They're sharing the Passover meal. Well, it was the governor's custom to release a prisoner at the time of Passover. So a crowd gathers, and Pilate asks the people, look, which one do you want me to release to you? Do you want me to release Barabbas, who's a murderer, or do you want me to release to you Jesus, who is called Christ? Well, meanwhile, while this is happening, his wife sends him a message, and she tells him, don't have anything to do with Jesus. He's innocent. She says that she has suffered a great deal that day because of a dream that she's had over him. But the people shouted that they wanted Barabbas released. And so when Pilate asked, well, what should come of Jesus, the people yell, crucify him, crucify him. And Pilate's like, well, what has he done? He asks the crowd, why? What has he done? And things just start to get out of hand, and the crowd just gets into an uproar. And so Pilate literally washes his hands in front of the people, and he says, I'm innocent of this man's blood. It's your responsibility. He releases Barabbas, and he hands Jesus over to be crucified. Now, a number of things happen between Pilate and the cross. So Jesus is flogged, he is mocked, he is a crown of thorns is placed upon his head, he is spit on, he is beaten. And when we get to Mark 15, it tells of when Jesus is being led to the cross. So Mark 15, verses 22 to 24 in the NIV version says, they brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. They offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him, dividing up his clothes. They cast lots to see what each would get. Okay, so here we see, that as Jesus is hanging on the cross, he is being offered wine mixed with myrrh. This could have been a cloth that was soaked in wine. It was wrapped around the end of a stick and placed up to Jesus's lips. And why would they do that? Well, wine would have helped to dull the excruciating pain of crucifixion. During this time, they used to infuse myrrh into wine to give it a more agreeable flavor and fragrance. And the Greek verb for doing this is called smornizu. So they smornizu, and smornizu means to mix with and therefore flavor with wine. Hi, Kaylee. Thanks for joining us. So they smornizued the wine with myrrh. But Jesus refused it. He did not dull the pain on taking on all, mine, yours, all of our sins, the sins of the world, on the cross. And we see here that the aroma of myrrh was in the air, not just in the home of Christ as he was a young child, but we see it again whenever we see Christ at the crucifixion. Now, next, we're going to find myrrh again in the life of Christ. We're going to talk this time about myrrh at his resurrection. So I so look forward to sharing that with you. And I hope this has been a blessing to you. I hope it has helped you to really just see the how essential oils, how many times have we read this story, right? Read it at Easter and never really noticed. Yes, I knew that wine was offered to Jesus, never really picked on that myrrh was there. And yes, God's love is incredible for us, that he would go to the cross for us and suffer that excruciating death for us. And not, even though he was all man and all God, he could have alleviated that pain from himself, but he chose to take it on for us. What an awesome God we serve. So thank you. Kaylee wants to hear more about myrrh. You're so funny. Okay, so have an awesome day. I'm not going to promise that I'll be on here tomorrow, but I will be back as soon as I can to share myrrh essential oil at Jesus's resurrection. Have an awesome afternoon. Bye.